Hey guys, what's up? Hope all is well. We're stepping into the 1-hour course on vocal processing today. We're going to do a step-by-step few videos here that are going to go through what you got to do when you get the vocals from your vocalist or your acapella all the way to processing, tuning, bussing, etc. on how to basically finalize your vocal to the finished step for it ready to go on top of your track. Regardless of genre and what you're working in, these few steps we're going to go through today can work for every type of genre. Really focusing on pop, in a nutshell, making your vocals sit on top and really pop out of the mix. It's the most important part when you're working with vocal stems, so keep that in mind that we really want to make the vocal shine, and that's what we'll get into with processing today. But the first thing I usually start with right out of the box is how can I tune my vocal and how can I balance my vocal right away? Not processing it too much yet. I'm trying to make sure my vocalist is singing in key with the chord structure that I'm working with or the root notes. And usually sometimes I'll give a chord progression to a vocalist and tell them to just write and just go to town on it, and then I can write an entire track around that chord progression. So you guys can see here the chords we have, just taking a vocal a cappella from one of our packs from Bonnie and Clyde, which are perfect example because we have several different stems that we're going to balance out today. With that being said, before we go forward, you do want to try to grab several stems or bounces from your vocalist so it gives you a little bit of more of a freedom as a producer, so you can kind of go the extra mile with harmonizing or maybe detuning, layering, etc. The same thing you would do with synths. The more material, the better. You can kind of get creative. So you guys will see, we'll dive into that in a little bit. Well, like I said, first thing first, let's tune it and make sure everything is in the key with our chords that we played down here.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you, I need you, nobody else.
All right, so overall, that vocalist did very well. It is in tune, but I definitely can hear a couple what I would call MIDI semitones. She's hitting a couple mid-semi. The semitones, that's each key. You got 1 key, 2 key, 3 key, you got your semitones. But sometimes there's a middle section where the vocalist is hitting. So we'll bring this into Melodyne now.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you, I need you, nobody else.
All right, so now we have that entire vocal inside Melodyne. You guys can use whatever plugin you guys like. I know every DAW has a certain vocal editing section now, which is awesome. Logic has its flex option. I know Ableton and FL have something, but for me, Melodyne is where it's at. I'm going to grab all the vocals and I'm going to actually you'll notice how they'll move so sudden. Again, it's that half semi. You can see right here how far she's off. Let me back up. I wouldn't say far. She did really well, but it's that half semi that's going to kind of give that perfect natural sung vocal. So we got that basically all leveled out, and I can see right away that I need to bring this down to this G right here. So she's going to be hitting similar notes, and I basically can tell right here is probably going to be off, but we're going to play that out and see how it feels.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you.
You can hear that U has to pretty much go up a semi.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you, I need you, nobody else.
All right, so you guys, if anyone's unfamiliar with Melodyne, real quick, you guys can see actually these little, whatever you want to call them, squiggle lines, whatever you want to refer to them as, but that's the modulation of the vocalist, how she's holding it out, kind of if there's any of that quote-unquote wobble effect, so you really sometimes want to flatten that out a little bit in spots, but again, if you flatten that straight out, you're going to sound robotic, and you can tell if I were to come up here, it's going to sound a little bit strange if I flatten her out. That's not really what you want. Again, going back to vocalists sounding very organic, we don't want to damage what she worked so hard to do. The only thing we're really doing is getting those few half semis, sometimes the full key. We have to really balance it out, and that's what you can kind of do in Melodyne. Sometimes a vocalist will be really far off, and you can really start adjusting it, but to back it up, your vocalist should be trying to hit the closest to the keys. Of course, you want them to sing the best they can, so your job here is very, very simple in the end. So that's what I'm going to touch up on Melodyne. I'm right away leaving the modulation. I'm leaving the organic feeling that she's already sung, and I'm going to step over to the next one. So I'm going to actually bounce this in place, and I'm going to save it as a new audio stem, because I always keep my original basically, you know, you'll have it in your audio files and whatever, but I always keep it in Logic here as its own stem in case I ever go back, so I'll mute that out. And now we can call this lead vocal tuned, whatever you want to call it. So we know that's the one from Melodyne.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you, I need you, nobody else.
So that's sounding great. I'm gonna now make sure this is level, as in volume. Compression and processing will be next, but before, I always do this in a sequence. I want this done first, so when I get to my processing, I get to my layering that we were talking about, everything's gonna be basically lined up. She's gonna sound level and tune exactly where I want her. So now we can make sure. Now, a good rule of thumb, you guys might, when you work with your vocalists, your stems and your waves may not look exactly like this. Sometimes vocalists have, you know, different microphones, different techniques of singing, and it might be a little bit more unbalanced. You know, you might have a few spots that are very quiet or a few spots that are extremely loud. And that's why I'm talking about this vocal rider. This is a great place to really balance out, essentially tricking the listener that the vocalist was in the exact same spot of the mic the entire time. Now, sometimes you want a vocalist to get louder at certain sections for a little more emotion and drama, but sometimes you want a little quiet. Yes, you definitely do want that, but overall, volume-wise, you want your vocal pretty much kind of all balanced in with the volume. So that's what we're gonna do here.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you, I need.
Now you guys can see when I move the target to where that yellow meter. If I'm over that yellow meter, you're gonna see the fader, the master fader, fighting to bring the vocal up. That means we're not hitting basically our range that we set here, the kind of where we want it to mainly hit, how loud we want or how quiet. So if I want it a little quieter, which I generally do, I will set the target a little bit lower so that this is gonna be bouncing closer to the 0 dB, kind of the unity there where I want it to sit down lower. We don't need to crank her voice up because we're going to get to processing in a moment where we're going to start to get a louder outtake.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you.
So you can see how it's subtle, it's moving, but I gotta say, guys, this is a huge game changer if you're a little bit unaware of this, because usually back in, like, you know, 10 years ago, I want to say, when I was doing vocal editing, I used to go into my automations and literally be clicking volume here, bring it up to dB, bring it down, etc. And I'd be sitting here for an hour working on, you know, a pre-chorus and whatnot. Well, basically, I can record this in of what it's doing as it automates. So I'll go to write, and we'll click on right here. And now when I play it, it's literally going to record in what this vocal rider is doing in relation to dB when it's changing it up or down.
I can't keep lying to myself. I don't want you, I need you, nobody else.
And then we can go back to read or off, and now we know. Now it's going to do it on its own. Now I could bounce it down to another stem, and it's going to be the balanced take. It's going to be the tuned and the balanced volume take. You guys can see if you zoom in, bring this off. If I zoom in over here, you can see how, you know, accurate it is. You know, this wave is obviously lower, so it's trying to crank it up, and then it's biting it back down on this higher wave. So it's really accurate. You guys really want to mess around with your sensitivity settings. It's going to be different per vocal, you know, especially if you're working with a male vocal. You know, every vocalist in every setting here in the parameters is going to be slightly different. So just take this as the idea of what you need to work with. Depending on who you're working with on your vocalist, it's going to be slightly different. So the last thing I do, I bounce that in place. Now I do another stem because I know I have a balanced take. I can mute that out. Now I have my tuned, and you could say balance, whatever you guys want to call it. And now I know I'm pretty much prepped to go to my processing, to go to my layering, all that stuff, my harmonizing. It's all pretty much set up because now I've done the first two steps, tune and balancing. I can't explain how important they are.